Welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about why home-based businesses are kind of becoming more of a thing than they were, all the way up until 80s and 90s. But before I talk about how the article presents it, I just want to talk a little bit about some things that you probably know, but you haven't thought about in these terms. If you go back to the pre-industrialization society, like medieval or Renaissance Europe and things like that, home-based business was pretty much the only way a business ran. Right? And you think about what the stereotypical home-based businesses were. It might be the local pub if you're in some English village, right? And the pub owner lives above the pub. Okay, that's a home-based business as far as I'm concerned. Or you think about the local artisan, right? Or like a blacksmith or a woodworker. Chances are that woodworker, that blacksmith, slept in one room, crawled out of bed in the morning, and went to the next room over in the house or went to like a workshop outside and did their work. And that was also a home-based business. And of course you think about who are the first entrepreneurs. I mean, some small farmer in some little patch of land somewhere out in the countryside, right? So the farm and the house were very much next to each other, and that could also be considered a home-based business. This was very much the norm. And that wound up changing with things like the tragedy of the commons, when lords started fencing off land and using it for industrialization projects, forcing peasants into cities. And of course, industrialization started, the establishment of factories to take advantage of kind of this influx of city labor that was kind of occurring around the same time. So that's what really started this idea of like the home was separate from the workplace, but it's not like a natural order or anything like that. That's just something that has kind of happened historically. And you got to think about this. Work itself is changing once again. And if you go back, after World War II, all the way up to about the 1990s, working in a company was really the way to go, right? You work for this large company, GE, Ford, whatever, and you work hard and you get your pay raises every year, and there's like a company pension, and you'd know that wherever you worked, you'd pretty much stay in that same company for 40 years. And in most of the world, that's no longer the case. Japan is an exception. And it's not the same in companies anymore, right? First of all, benefits are getting worse and worse everywhere you go. Healthcare plans that companies provide are really not what they used to be. So you're kind of on your own, or you get maybe not very good health insurance wherever you work. Pensions have fundamentally changed. It used to be what they called a defined benefit pension, and now it's a defined contribution pension. A defined benefit pension could be explained as follows. In my previous university, we had defined benefit pensions. So for every year that you worked at that university, 2% of your final salary was what your pension would be. So let me give an example. Let's say a faculty member we'll do some easy math. Let's say a faculty member works at that school for 30 years and they make $100,000 in their final paycheck. They would get $60,000 because it's 30 years times 2% of $100,000. Right? So they'd get $60,000. Let's say they only worked at the university 10 years and they retired. Well, then they would get how much? That's right, $20,000. Just making sure you're paying attention. And that was what we called a defined benefit pension. Now you have what's called a defined contribution with, you hear about your IRAs, your 401ks, all that kind of stuff. That is a defined contribution. So you can contribute $4,000 to your pension fund. The company might or might not match it, but it's really based on your own contributions. And of course, that's invested in the stock market and other stuff for you, and you hope that all of your retirement doesn't go away like pensions are, like stock gains and pensions tend to be doing right now. So, there's really less incentive for you to hope or continue to work at the same place in the hopes of getting that pension, because a defined contribution pension, you can roll it over to your next company. So you really don't have much incentive to do that. The other thing is, a lot of companies, they don't even give you annual raises. So if you want to get a raise, you've basically either got to get promoted, which doesn't even happen. Internal promotions kind of becoming a thing of the past, or you've got to move to a new company, get a new pay raise, or negotiate a promotion that way. So this kind of change in what used to be considered an employer's responsibility towards the employees, making sure they have the pension, the pay raise, the benefits so that they're happy and they stay there for life, that contract really no longer exists. So people are incentivized to move from one company to the next, right? And kind of along with that have been certain trends in ideal types of entrepreneurs, right? We all think about Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, these great entrepreneurs who start these wonderful tech companies. And people look and they say, wow, I want to be an entrepreneur like that too. So there's less stigma against becoming an entrepreneur. Couple that with some generational trends that have occurred. So those of us that are be a little bit older than me, be what we call Generation X. These are people that are looking more at working for themselves as opposed to working for a company. Again, because of these benefits and this traditional social contract between employers and employees that has been eroding over time. Generation Y, those are people that we normally say if were born 1978 to 2001, have added to this Generation X trend of kind of mobility, career and geographical mobility, and they've also become way more tech savvy, and they're more interested in maintaining their independence in some ways than they are focused on profits. Okay, so you couple that too. So you've got a population of people that looks up to entrepreneurs and respects them. You've got an eroding social contract between workers and managers, and then you've got a general social trend that values mobility and independence. These are kind of these three hidden forces going on. You couple with that with the fact that the nature of work and working itself has changed. In industrialized countries, we have shifted away from manufacturing and we have moved more into the service sector. I mean, let's face it, it'd be really hard to operate a factory out of your home. But it's a lot easier to be an accountant in your home. So the rise of the service sector is also resulting in a rise in home-based businesses because there are more jobs, more different types of jobs that can be done in the home. And of course, once again, with the influx of technology, whether it's computers or access to the internet, however you want to look at it, the transaction cost and the startup cost of launching any kind of business, including a home-based business, has reduced. So you no longer have to rely on economies of scale, but these home-based businesses and these entrepreneurs maintain a tremendous amount of flexibility that large-scale companies simply do not have. Also kind of coinciding with these kind of broader demographic and societal trends, plus the changing nature of work, is customer tastes have changed. People really like artisanal things, kind of limited production runs. I mean, you think about fashion. Fashion is going more towards custom-made items. Even think about Budweiser, this amazing bulwark in the beer industry, is losing market share to microbreweries. I mean, people like that kind of unique, one-time artistic experience. And again, that favors the entrepreneur and the home-based business owner. The other thing that you've got to consider is the fact that it's easier for people to pay merchants who are small. I remember when I was younger, like in high school, people were terrified of using their credit card on the internet because they thought the information would get stolen. Well, now that's not the case. Payment can be very secure. Heck, you can even go to a merchant and use that little square device that they plug into their cell phone, and they can swipe a credit card right there in their cell phone, and that can be paid for as well. So it's becoming easier to pay small vendors too. You don't have to carry around huge wads of cash for your services. So what else? The other thing that you've got to look at is with the rise of home-based businesses, it's a way for you to spread your risk. You've got a lot of people that work corporate jobs, but they want to have a home-based business on the side to give them just a little bit more economic security. Maybe that helps them pay their rent, the cable bill, something like that, right? It gives them just one more way of spreading their risks across unemployment. So these are kind of the broader historical trends, plus the broader societal trends, plus the changing nature of work, plus a change in consumer tastes that have all resulted in the fact that home-based businesses are now growing more than ever. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, give me a like. That's a thumbs up. Make sure you comment down below and make sure you subscribe. In our next video, we're going to talk about some of the downsides of home-based businesses. I'll see you in the next video.